Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. The legislative session in full swing here, and we were joined by a guy, I used to say the most swing county in the whole state, Jefferson County. Senator Paul Wieland, you're the dean of the delegation. You've led it from a swing county to one of the most solidly red counties in the state. Yeah,
the last couple election cycles, we've really turned it red, you could say, yes. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Senate. There's early on, sometimes you feel like when the Senate's calm, it's the calm before the storm. It kind of has this feeling in committee and different ones that this is a pretty collegial group, and there's not some of the internal divisions, or they're not as personal as they may have seemed last year. It feels like, so far, as we say here at the end of January, a pretty good feel to the Senate so far.
Yeah, the tone is kind of more mellow, I think, than where we're coming off of. But everything you kind of ratchet up. So you kind of start off kind of calm, and then as you get in the heat of the battle, more and more controversial bills may come up. And those things are what kind of start to, I guess, divide and kind of anger people. And then you remember this happened on that one. So right now, it's always easy at the beginning. I do feel a tone, a more, I guess, agreeable tone amongst the senators this year. And I think it's, maybe we learned something from last year. Maybe last year was kind of a lesson that, okay, sometimes when everybody's fighting, nobody gets anything that they want. So it's like, hey, if we're going to get some stuff done, maybe we need to work together a little bit and not hold as many grudges.
Now, you watch one night about 2 in the morning, you can look up at me and I'll be sitting in the peanut gallery and you can remember this quote that I said in January that doesn't apply now. Let's talk about something, though. The Clean Missouri bill in the Senate is teed up. It's ready to come to the floor. I've heard it might be this week that they bring that to the floor and start working on it. I don't get the sense that lawmakers on the Democrat side are as jazzed up to fight every point of this as maybe the folks on Twitter are. It seems like there's a compromise out there where you just say, okay, all the ethics stuff, good, keep it.
Right.
And then we're going to vote on the how you design the districts on its own. It doesn't. I mean, it seems like, yes, there is the argument going back on the will of the voters, but it doesn't seem like the biggest affront to democracy Missouri's ever seen.
Yeah, and I don't know if that argument really holds that we're overturning what the voters did. The way I look at it is we're giving the voters another opportunity. I'm a big person that I think the more options people have, the better. That's one of the things I like about health care, that hopefully we're going to a place after the ACA to where people will have choices. Right now, I hate the cookie cutter, one size fits all. So to me, anytime you can give the voters another option, they can take whatever we come up with in the Senate, and in November they can say, no, we don't want it. But we're giving them another option. We're not undoing what they've done. We're saying, hey, if you want something else, here's an option for it. And the voters can decide. They have the ultimate voice. It's not us that are making this decision.
I look at those legislative districts. You have a district that, although you've run very popularly in it and done very well, that district back in the day was considered extremely competitive. You took it over from a Democrat and former Senator Ryan McKenna. I would say in the House, you would have to have a person that, whether it's fair or not, I don't think Nicole Galloway won when Clean Missouri was passed. These legislative districts are going to, if the system doesn't change, people are going to credit or blame her. I don't think she's going to decimate African-American districts in the House. I just don't think an appointee of Jay Nixon is going to do that. What I do think, though, is you could take your district up into South County a little bit, and you could maybe make yours where either competitive or even maybe have a Democrat advantage. You could take the southern part of that district and cut it up in different ways, maybe not with Trump on the ballot, but in a future election, there are Senate districts you could change through this.
You could, but if you're looking at Jefferson County, I guess I would go back to this, is that back in the days when the Democrats had more control over the county, we had a different kind of Democrat. I've said since I started in 1994 that there are 3 things that you run on Jefferson County. One is you want to be pro-labor, one is you want to be pro-life, and the last is you're pro-Second Amendment. And the problem we've got with the Democrats of today is they've abandoned that principle. They're still pro-labor, but they've turned their back on the pro-life issue and the Second Amendment. And in order for them to make gains and be somewhere in their party, I just don't see them having a future with the Jefferson County voters unless they come to be the middle of the road Democrat again.
You're a very rare Republican, a very rare member of the legislature, in the sense that you've ran in primaries before and you've actually ran in tough seats and flipped them. There's maybe a dozen Republicans that can speak to this. Do you think Republicans run the risk in places like Jefferson County, in the future places like maybe even St. Charles County, of becoming too anti-labor? And just like you said, these used to be pro-life, pro-gun, pro-labor Democrats. Do you run the risk of becoming too anti-labor as Republicans?
I think you do. I mean, I do. I think right now we have the benefit of the tide from coming out of Washington, where Jefferson County was kind of anti-Obama and they're very much pro-Trump. But if we have a president that doesn't move the needle, then I think being anti-labor really is going to stand out and be an issue.
I mean, if you're on the ballot this year in Jefferson County for state senate, state rep, dog catcher, you're going to win with Trump.
Right, exactly.
But if you change that to Ted Cruz, I think that could be a very different look. I don't know that the places, Eastern Jackson County, Jefferson County, the Boot Heel, I'm not sure the places where he's really overperformed normal Republican ballots. I think maybe those Republicans, the people voted Republican for Trump, maybe not for the Republican Party.
Right, I agree.
Let's talk about something else you've got. You have we mentioned Clean Missouri. I think you could make honest arguments for all of Clean Missouri's parts. Right. Like him, not like him. The one part I thought was unfair is on staffers. Right now, if you're a staffer and work in that capital, you make very little money, but you do gain knowledge of the government process, and you could take it and then go to work for somebody else that values that more and provide for your family. And Clean Missouri said if you work in the legislature, you have to become a lobbyist. If you're in a state employee, you have to become a lobbyist for all these different classifications of lobbying, which means then you can't go get a job, doing other things. You can't go work in the executive branch. Right. There's things where you can't go from staff to lobbying. I think it was unfair, and I think that part, even I would say Sean Nicholson, who I have a high regard for, I think if he had his marble, he would do that one over, and you have a bill to address that.
Right, yeah. So my bill basically will say that there's about 50 jobs that are either you work for the executive branch or for statewide office holder that right now have to be registered lobbyists.
Legislative liaisons, right?
Yeah, they're legislative liaisons. So we're just saying these no longer are required to be registered lobbyists. And what that will do, that will free that up so that these executive departments and statewide offices can come into the legislature and try to find people that have the experience and bring them up through the ranks and then hire them. One of the things about term limits that, we got term limits, we're going to live with them, but the one thing about that never made sense, and this is kind of the same kind of thing, is in the private sector, if I had a rule in my insurance agency that once you were there 8 years, I had to fire you, that you were no longer allowed to be in there, you give away so much of the knowledge.
You're not going to have that good a pool of employees to pull from.
No, you're not. Yeah. And you're not going to run your business very good. Well, the same thing with state government. If we say the executive branch and the statewide office holders can't tap into that pool of knowledge, we're doing ourselves a disservice.
Well, that's
why I think it makes sense.
Jamie Murphy, we're going to have his father on here. Very fine chief of staff, one of the more highly regarded staffers in the Senate. But the buck stops with you.
Right.
And if you want to say you can't be a lobbyist, I'm not sure that there are legitimate reasons for that.
Right.
But your staff, I don't think that's fair to them because at the end of the day, the decision rests with you.
Right. And so in this case, Jamie never decided to run for office. He's got a family, kids to feed. He should not be penalized just because this is the line of work that he's working in. He should have every opportunity to move forward.
And I bet you a cold Anheuser-Busch product that if you got Sean Nichols in a room and he met some of the people this impacted, I'll bet you even he might say, you know what, I think that might have been part that wasn't necessary to do. I'm not sure you're getting the results. I mean, I don't think he's getting the results from that. Let me talk about something else though that is in the news and impacts all this is the governor's race. Governor Parson will be on the ballot in Jefferson County. If he's on the ballot with Donald Trump, I mean, I think that. I mean, what does Donald Trump win Jefferson County by? 10, 15?
20%,
yeah. The fall off in that, I mean, we watched Chris Koster, who had a lot of the endorsements that Parson will have. Parson will have that ag support, that Second Amendment support. To me, you're going to have to do more to break those people away. I mean, maybe there's a strategy to break over some college-educated people in the suburbs, but when you get to Jefferson County, that Republican wave looks like it rolls.
I think so. I think Governor Parsons, he's doing the things, he's creating economic opportunity for people, and he's helping the everyday person. He's not doing it in a flashy sense. They say there's show horses and there's work horses. Well, Governor Parsons is a workhorse, and I think people in Jefferson County, they appreciate a workhorse more than they do a show horse, and I think that he'll do very well down there. He's been down there a couple times already, and it just seems like he resonates with folks very good down there.
So take Jefferson County. If Trump does 15, wins by 15 in Jefferson County, which I think if Joe Biden's there, look, I think your opponent. If you had an opponent on the ballot, if Joe Biden come to the fair in Arnold or Festus, I think you could be seen with him.
Right.
The rest of the lot, I don't think any sane politician would be seen with them in Jefferson County.
I agree, yeah.
So let's say but Trump wins by 15. Okay. What does Parson do in Jefferson County?
I think he's going to do 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be a little fall off, but not much. Yeah.
That gets very hard to overcome, and the numbers in the state. If places where like Claire McCaskill's done well, Jay Nixon, being from Jefferson County, has a different.
Right.
But he still did very well in the places that Trump overperformed. I think you start winning Jefferson County by 12, that gets very tough for Nicole Galloway to make this a horse race.
Oh, I agree.
Talk about impeachment.
I think statewide, I think I think Parsons is a real good place. Impeachment, I think that's.
Stop at the Crystal Tavern right now in Crystal City.
I don't think anybody's talking about it. I mean, I don't hear anything talk. I mean, the people are talking about. Believe it or not, in Jefferson County, I'm hearing people talk about the Chiefs. There are people talk about the NHL All-Star game.
Well, let me ask you, let's say we went to the Blue Owl in Kimmswick, and we mentioned impeachment. What's the average Jefferson County say? Jefferson County and say?
I'd say the average one's going to say, like, I get tired of hearing all that stuff. I mean, I think there's a fatigue. I think people are going to be like, I don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about something else, the local basketball team or something. I think there's a fatigue, and I think people are just tired of it because it's been going on for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, they've been trying to do this for over 2 years. I mean, at a certain point in time, you get tired of turning on the TV and hearing the same old story.
Yeah.
So I think there's impeachment fatigue is what I would
Let's talk about something that's not that no one's having fatigue on. Stanley Cup comes to the Capitol tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, that'd be exciting. Yeah, that'd be exciting to see it. Yeah.
So you have the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl, the Stanley Cup at the Capitol. Maybe the Cardinals get Nolan Arenado.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe a soccer stadium. That is something interesting. There's been some questions about the state's commitment to that. I think there's some serious business people in this state that felt like the state had a commitment there. It seems like that's working out. But do you think? I think if this wasn't a soccer stadium, a sports stadium, this would be a great deal and everybody would be in.
Yeah. Whenever you deal with professional sports, you do have this image of the people that own the teams as being like the mega billionaires or whatever, and it's hard to say we're going to help you with state resources. But in this particular case, I do think that there's going to come a point in time to where sooner or later I think the state will get involved. At what degree, I'm not sure. But the good thing is there's going to be a lot of checks and balances.
Sure.
I mean, one of the things that I guess last year was we had a bill that funded some of the Scott Trade Center renovations and stuff, and I was able to put an amendment on there. And it's a real simple amendment, but it basically just said if they ever decide to leave town, they got to pay all the money back.
Senator, as it unfolds, hope you'll come back and chat with us on This Week in Missouri Politics.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel. The best hair of Missouri politics, Joe Lakin joining us. But I want to tell you, Wednesday night, if you're anywhere near Jefferson City, come join us. Our third annual Statesman of the Year banquet. We awarded at the time Senator Kehoe. Last year was Governor Parson. We're going to have a great time. We'd love for all of our readers, all of our people who listen to the show in Missouri, people that watch the show, come join us at 6 o'clock at the Mill Bottom. We have a great time. I think you'll really enjoy it. And we would personally love to thank you in person for watching, reading, all the ways we can show appreciation. We want to do that to you. We'll be right back after this.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association.
Your energy needs are changing. That's why at Ameren, Missouri, we're not waiting on the future. We're building it with the Smart Energy Plan, advancing thousands of projects across the state, helping reduce emissions through cleaner energy sources, boost reliability with self-healing equipment, and better withstand storms with new composite poles. Moving Missouri forward and bringing us all a little closer together. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. Stephen Roberts running for Senate in St. Louis City. Welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here.
Ann Schweitzer also running for something now. Alderwoman, where at?
The 13th ward around Holly Hills.
Now, if I was at Busch Stadium, how would I find your ward?
You would go south. You would go south.
South. Yeah. Jim Murphy, South County, St. Louis. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
And the best hair of Missouri politics, Joe Lakin. And I saw the story in the Times, Missouri Times, that is. Victory's got a new New business?
Yeah, absolutely. Launched Objective Media this week, a digital buying company. So excited to put that to work for our clients.
Awesome. You can start like an Oktoberfest planning company next?
That'll be next, yeah.
Let's talk about something that is underway. It's Cleveland, Missouri. It looks like this week is possibly the week they bring it up in the Senate. So if they change Cleveland, Missouri right now, then you put something on the ballot, does it just go back to the judges? Is that the old way you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it remains to be seen, but I think the underlying arguments on this, I think, have been a little short. I mean, the fact of the matter is, anybody arguing that our legislative districts were gerrymandered before is ridiculous. They were drawn by panels and judges. And
I would disagree. They were gerrymandered, and anybody that seriously cares about the things they say they care about would gerrymander them to elect more people that agree with you. If the judges draw them, they're gerrymandered. Last time they put all these incumbents together to prove they weren't partisan. That every time this has been done, it's been gerrymandered. It's just they fight it out over who gets a gerrymander.
Well, as somebody who helped untie a lot of those knots, I can tell you there was no gerrymandering in favor of Republicans in that process in 2011.
Sure. Ann Schweitzer, if you could draw the map, you would draw it to like more Democrats, right? You gerrymander it.
I think Republicans have been sore winners in this whole situation. Republicans win the majority of seats, supermajority, and yet when, let's say, a supermajority of voters say this is how we want things done, they're like, no, we don't. We're not going to do that. It's like, listen to the voters, do what they want. That's how you got elected. Let's move forward.
When voters in the state elect a supermajority of Republicans that promise to be pro-life, that promise to be pro-gun, that promise to cut taxes, when it's someone else's ox is getting gored, well, you should listen to the voters. Well, when should you listen to the voters, though?
I think you should always listen to the voters. I think the voters tell you what they want, and in this case, they want clean Missouri. I'm not trying to argue that all the Republicans in Missouri should be removed from office. I'm trying to argue that legislation that the voters want, including a vast majority of Republicans, should be respected.
I agree generally with the point of the future alderwoman. However, I would say this: I don't think when you have two things on the ballot, I think maybe it's a structural issue. Putting redistricting on with ethics reform on the same question, to me, you could make a credible argument those two things should be separate. The Republicans plan to go put this actually out for people to look at a second time. I mean, I can understand where you wouldn't like it if you want the new system, but it's not an illogical idea.
Right, but I think what Missourians really want is more competitive districts. I mean, I think that we get better legislation when we have a more balanced House and Senate.
I don't disagree with you at all, but do you want that by Democrats making a better case to the people of Missouri rather than by some way to draw the districts?
I think so.
Jim Murphy, when you were going to come on, I thought this is great because I thought I'd like to just ask you, give me the honest to God South County Jim Murphy spin on this concept. There's been talk, millions of dollars have been spent. There'll be tons of hours of debate. Give me what's really happening.
We should call this the hypocrisy bill.
Which one?
The entire Clean Missouri situation. I understand you say let's not overturn the will of the voters. Our Supreme Court just overturned the will of the voters by saying we can't have voter ID, but your side is just absolutely giddy about that because we've overturned the will of the voters.
For this to go to if that's where it goes, then I think
we're
we will
asking
win.
for it to go back to the voters because
Right.
people didn't understand it. My opponent in the next election said, Jim Murphy's out here saying that people didn't understand it, and then she held a fundraiser and asked for $2,500 donations. Obviously, she didn't understand it. There was too much in it. We're just putting it back to the voters, and actually we're going to fix it in a lot of ways. That $5 limit, I went to an event the other night, and they gave me a $5 ticket to get a drink. I got a 4-ounce Coke, and now I got to worry, is this going to be on my ethics? I don't want it. I don't want that $5 thing. I really don't.
Just get rid of it all?
Get rid of it all. Get rid of the $5. Get rid. Why did the Senate get $2,500 worth of campaign funds when I only get $2,000? Let's make it the same. So we're going to fix a lot of things in this. And is there any? Is this truly a bipartisan way of doing it? The way we're going to do it? Last week on your show, some Democrats sat over there and said, "Well, Nicole Galloway will protect our black legislators." Well, how is she going to do that if this is totally bipartisan?
Because there's nothing that's totally bipartisan in the history of the world. Joe Lakin, has there been a map where people couldn't say they were gerrymandered?
Well, I think
Ever.
I think gerrymandering a lot of times is used to describe a map you don't like. I don't think it often has anything to do with what's in it or whether it's fair, compact, contiguous. It matters how it protects your own interests.
Isn't that the goal, though? Don't we want to move towards more people having more of a voice? I think that's what Democrats really want, and that's what the people who voted for this want.
But do you think it's better to get that by Democrats making a better case to people in South County or people in the Boot Hill or people in Eastern Jackson County, as opposed to doing a systematic change to draw districts?
I think it's very important how our districts are drawn.
I agree. And if you could draw the districts, you would draw them more Democratic, right? I mean, I can tell you, I've always been a Republican. I was around the last redistricting process, or the one in 2000 for sure. Sure, we had to draw them to be totally Republican. But I think the way it works, no one's super happy with it.
Right.
Maybe that's the best thing. Let's talk about Medicaid expansion. Another thing going to the voters. To me, looks like this is going to happen. I mean, what is the case is very simple. They make an economic case. The part it's hard to believe, is that Medicaid expansion is instantly going to be a boon for the state budget. Now, is that the part, do you buy that part of the argument?
I think that in the long run, it's going to save Missouri money. Absolutely. And it's the right thing to do. I mean, I think that health care is a fundamental right.
That's why I understand the fact, and I'm not sure that there's a very, very intelligent people make a good case, and over the long run, the state's going to see this money back. But the first 2 to 3 years, that's not real.
Well, I think the state's definitely going to see this money back. We're talking about giving $1 and getting 5, or even more than that. So it's
Which
a
works
good
unless
deal.
you don't have $1.
Well, we would have $1 if we passed some good taxes, maybe taking some money from, Wayfair taxes, making sure that we are getting money to our state from companies doing business in our state. We have to make sure that, our gas tax is the lowest one in the country, or very
But you have
low.
to
if
listen
not
to the will
low.
of the voters, right? They didn't want to raise it.
That's true, but that was a terribly written. That's the thing where it's like that was bad. You can buy that.
Thing I was talking about.
Jim,
will,
tell me.
yeah.
I mean, Medicaid expansion would help some people in your district in South County, and you have St. Anthony's, and you have access to really world-class health care right near you. Other parts of the state, like where I'm from, that health care has been decreasing at a rapid pace. This would actually help a lot of people that vote Republican.
Well, the reality is that there's always a ceiling. There's always how many people can you help, and it really comes down to how many people can you afford to help.
Sure.
So if we pass this, it's going to put a $100 million hole in our budget. Someday maybe we'll get it back. But where do I take that from? Do I take it now from roads? Do I take it from education? How do I pay for this?
This comes out of education, right? I mean, it's where it comes.
Probably going to come out of education. And we're not going to pass new taxes. We are taxed to death right now. Well, I spent on a committee over the summer looking at local taxations. We've got so many taxes, and we got 2,700 different sales taxes in this state. For example, 2 years ago in St. Louis County, we passed a quarter of a cent sales tax to help seniors. Does anybody know where that money's going? Does anybody have any accountability for that money?
High school seniors or... I'm just kidding.
I've asked the county council 3 times, tell me where this money is, and they can't even tell me. Yeah, there's a lot of waste in this state.
I like that you asked the money question, because Joe, I'm going to ask you the money question about this. I think you would know if this is happening, but I think obviously if you're a hospital, you're going to act your own self-interest, you're going to fund this campaign. There's a lot of out-state folks that will put money into this. Is there a Republican that's going to stand up and fund an opposition? And if they don't, this is going to happen, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, look, I have been on both sides of initiative petitions in this state, ballot measures, both pro and,
right to
and
farm.
against.
Very hard fought victory.
Well, yeah, and I will tell you, the window to win is long, right? To run a successful campaign takes 18, 24, 36 months. The window to defeat a measure sometimes can take a week, 10 days. I remember the so-called puppy mill bill back in, I think it was 2010, was at 70% after $300,000 was spent against it.
You
It was
told me
almost
something,
defeated.
Missouri, and I've watched this, I believe this, Missourians are inclined to vote no. You have to convince them to vote yes.
Yeah, and look, I think increasingly, I think there's both the Missouri angle and there's also sort of a cultural angle where the institutions that we used to trust, we don't trust as much anymore. So it is so much easier to defeat a measure than it is to pass
How
one.
much money do you need to defeat this measure?
Oh, I think a factor of maybe 10% of what's spent in support of it.
Will that money be there?
remains to be seen.
This is not going to lose in Missouri. Missouri is going to pass Medicaid expansion. It's going to be on the ballot. It's going to pass. Nicole Galloway has said that this is her commitment. She's going to make it happen. And Governor Parson has said, I'm not going to fight the voters. The two people in our state who have probably the best polling numbers.
You can't fight it.
Who have the best polling numbers. We always fight them. They'll fight it. The two people in the state who have the best polling information are saying, you can't say you're against this right now. You can't really be against this right now because people in Missouri are going to vote to pass this.
Let's talk about something that the public opinion. You have members in suburban parts of the state. You used to have members in Jefferson County and places that aren't Democrats anymore. How do you tell somebody you're trying to get to run for the state house in Jefferson County or Eastern Jackson County, the Boot Hill, that this impeachment thing isn't a serious, impediment to their success?
Well, it's difficult, especially now the way a lot of news agencies are. I mean, it's just everything's so polarizing with identity politics.
What do you think? I assume this just dies a quiet death, right?
It's hard to say.
I mean, right now you need a Hail Mary, right? A John Bolton coming in and saying, I have these emails or whatever.
Yeah, what we're going to have for sure is an election in November, and this time next year, Trump will not be our president.
Who will be our president?
Oh, I hope Elizabeth Warren, but I will.
I
will vote for whoever.
I can see Nicole Galloway right now drinking her
Please help
coffee
us.
on Sunday morning and spewing the coffee. I mean,
I'm allowed to vote for whoever I want. That's how it works.
That'd be great.
Yes,
If not Bernie. If Bernie's unavailable, I think she'd be a great nominee for that.
I mean, the impeachment thing, give me what folks in South County think about this.
I think it's a non-issue. I think Donald Trump's going to win big time.
If you're at Helen Fitzgerald's and you mention this, what do people say?
They say, let's drink to Trump.
I'm afraid they do. Joe Lakin, I mean, this, I don't know that this really changes much. You would think an impeachment would, but I think people have a tin ear because people have hated Trump from the very beginning, and the hatred's clear. It's obvious.
Yeah, look, Super Bowl coming up. As Chiefs fans, you want to put the ball in the hands of Patrick Mahomes. As Republicans right now, you get a big fight, you want the ball in the hands of Mitch McConnell. The man knows how to operate, and ultimately this is going to be a huge boondoggle for Democrats. Nancy Pelosi was right about it, honestly.
Yeah, I think she was too.
And she's the smartest one they've got, tactically, and she was boxed into a corner, and here they are.
This was two A players, two of the most successful politicians of our generation. Mitch McConnell's had all the leverage.
Yep.
Because I just don't see a path to making this happen.
I agree.
Now, can they embarrass? You think there'll be some senators that try to embarrass Trump? There's some Republican senators that vote with Democrats to try to embarrass him?
I wouldn't bet on it.
I watched Mitt Romney have dinner with Donald Trump because he had to. He rubbed his face in it. That guy might be one, right?
He might.
Let's see.
I doubt it.
With a minute left, who won the week?
Ron Hicks, he successfully moved one of the Attorney General's priorities regarding residency in the state.
Who won the week?
Corey Faith Walker, she's been doing some excellent work on the prescription drug monitoring plan and had a good win this week.
Sorry, Jeff City. Yeah, who won the week?
Sports fans of Missouri, we got a team going to the Super Bowl. We've got a NHL All-Star game, and we had winter warm-up.
And maybe Nolan Arenado before the season starts?
Let's hope.
Maybe. Who won the week?
For nostalgia's sake, I'm going to say Medicaid man Todd Richardson. I think he's doing great work over there. Curious to see what they come up with here.
I'd been extremely disappointed if he said someone else.
I couldn't think of anybody else.
I'm going to say one person I heard start the Clean Missouri talk from the very beginning, Todd Graves. He kept saying, if you don't fight this, it will pass. It'll be a problem. Republicans didn't fight it, and they've been talking about how they wish they would have ever since. So I'm going to say Todd Graves. Hope you'll win the week. Join us Wednesday night at Mill Bottom for our Statesman of the Year banquet in Jeff City. You'll really have a good time, 6 o'clock, and we'll see you back here next week on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics, sponsored by the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts, Spire, and Sterling Bank.
We're doing a thing of the history of Missouri. We're going to do it one county at a time. We call it Show Me Missouri. We're going to travel to all 114 counties of the state. We'll have a member of the Farm Bureau, county elected officials, some of your state legislators you see here on the show. We're going to talk about the history, what's happening now in the county, and how the two are interconnected. It's a passion project of mine. If you like history, I hope you'll get involved. Follow us, go to MissouriTimes.com. You can see it. We'll probably branch it off into its own social media at some point. But you've been so good to us, the Missouri Times, the show, different papers. This is a passion project that I hope you'll enjoy. It's called Show Me Missouri, the history of Missouri, one county at a time. The first county was Polk County. We had a great time. And we hope you'll go to MissouriTimes.com, find a little bit about it. And if you like the history of the state, I hope you'll enjoy it. Thanks a lot.